Um, when I was 18 years old, I worked for Papa's Seafood House. And it was great to work at Papa's Seafood House. You might have heard of it. It's like the non-Cajun version of Pappadeaux's. I don't know if y'all have ever been there or heard about it, but pretty popular chain that grew from Houston and then moved out to several other places now. But I was a waiter there my senior year, and we sold a lot of seafood. And most seafood that's fried takes 3 to 7 minutes to get fried seafood. But there was one thing called the the stuffed flounder, which was butterfly cut, stuffed in a crab, shrimp, and cornbread dressing. Most expensive thing on the menu at the time, but also took the longest to make, 22 minutes. So you wanted to get it right when you cooked it. Well, I was back in the kitchen, and the stuffed flounder was going out to a table, and it slides off the back of my tray. My manager was behind me, and he reaches out and catches the stuffed flounder. It was in his hands. It never touched the floor. And then a decision had to be made. Do we replate it and get it out to the table? Or do you tell them you're going to have to wait, because everyone's meal had to come out at the same time. Y'all are going to have to wait another 25 minutes to get your meal out to you. We replated it. When I was in the restaurant industry for that brief time, I noticed there's a lot of things that people touch your food, and it goes through a lot of hands. And there's some things if you think about it, you're like, I don't know if I want to go out to eat. Then you look at your own kitchen, and maybe you think, well, it's probably cleaner than there. But there's some things, if you see a dirty kitchen, and Papa's didn't have a dirty kitchen, but if you see a dirty kitchen, you can't unsee that. And that's going to cause you to not want to go out to eat or not feel too good when you're eating. And I want us to think about the things we see that cause us to where we don't unsee it. There's moments where you see something once and you can't unsee it. And not just things that are happening in like the restaurant industry or your hotel or whatever's happened behind the scene, but it's people. And there are a lot of people in this world that are broken. There are a lot of people in this world that are hurting. There are a lot of people in this world that are struggling, and we are around people in this world, and we see the broken, the hurting, the struggling. We see that. And when we see it, it's not something we can unsee, but we have to decide, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about the broken? What are we going to do about the hurting? What are we going to do about the struggling? Jesus gives us the clear example of what he does for the hurting. See, Jesus sees what so many of us choose to ignore. When I go to restaurants, I don't think about all the people handling my food. I just put it in the back of my mind. But Jesus sees people just like the people I put in the back of my mind. Let's stay in Matthew 9 for the first part of today. Matthew 9, verse 36 reads like this. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And then he says to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the fields. Jesus walked in this world and he saw a crowd. And a lot of us see all the people in this world. We see the multitude of coworkers or people at the mall or people on the street corner, neighbors. He saw crowds, but he didn't view them as crowds. He saw the individual. He saw the hurting. He has compassion, and his compassion leads him to speak, to say something. It says they were like helpless sheep without a shepherd. If we look at the Bible, sometimes Austin was saying about Isaiah, happened 500 years before Jesus came. The Old Testament is not disconnected from the New Testament. The Old Testament is connected throughout. And there are little bits in the Old Testament that are pointing to what Jesus is going to do. And if you look at Ezekiel chapter 34, this is a prophecy where God says, my people are scattered, no one's searching for them, the shepherds have failed them, and that's kind of abbreviated because the whole chapter is talking about what the people of Israel, what the leaders of Israel were doing for the people. And basically it says, you've abandoned them. You've left them hungry. You've left them hurting. You are not taking care of my people. You are not shepherding my people. Shepherding came up over and over in Scripture because sheep are helpless. They need someone to guide them. And what God's saying is the people have failed and they are no longer guiding them. And then if you go down further in, he will talk about, I will be their shepherd. I will seek the lost. I will bring them back. So, 500 years before Jesus comes, God is saying, I am going to be the one that helps them, that brings them back. And so when Jesus looks out at the crowd and he says, these are people that are hurting. I will be their shepherd. Jesus is starting to fulfill the prophecy that happened 500 years earlier. When he saw the crowd, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And then he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So when he's talking about the harvest, we have an idea. He's not just talking about plants. He's not talking about a crop. He is talking about people. And he's looking out at this world, and he sees the world where people are hurt and struggling. Whether it's personal struggles, sickness, or it's the sin in their life. And he sees this condition of the people. And he has compassion on them. Compassion's an interesting thing. Compassion is where we see something that's not right in this world and our heart goes out to it. Jesus doesn't just feel bad for the people. His heart breaks. His heart breaks to see them in this condition and see that they have no direction in life. And he could just be thinking, well, they have no direction in life, so what can we do outside of just feel bad about it? But that's not who Jesus is. Jesus didn't just look at it and say, look how bad this world is. We're in a horrible situation. And we can look at it in our life right now. We can turn on the news or we can scroll through social media and we can say, this world is a mess, right? All of us can think that. And it seems like every day it just gets worse. This world is a mess. People are hungry. People can't afford gas. People feel like they don't have good relationships. I was listening to a sermon last night that my friend gave, and it talked about how 25% of millennials, a quarter of all millennials, don't think that they have any close friends. What a problem that this world is. And yet Jesus doesn't say the problem is the world. He says the harvest is plentiful. The people have a lot of problems. The people have a need for a solution, but he says the workers are few. And he says, so pray for the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his field. One of the things that really hurts me is these days, this term is kind of mocked. Thoughts and prayers. And you'll see that if someone says, we'll be praying for you on social media or the news, whatever, people say, what are your thoughts and prayers going to do? Nothing. And I hate that people think that thoughts and prayers can do nothing. I want our congregation to be stronger in prayer and grow in prayer and be a congregation that feels comfortable to pray and ask for prayer. At the end of our service now, we're going to have our leaders come out to the sides, and if you just need prayer in private, they'll pray for you. If you need to even walk out of here, they'll go out and they'll pray for you. But look at the type of prayer that Jesus talks about. It says, so pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest and ask him to send out workers. If your Bible's open to Matthew chapter 9, what's the first thing that you see in Matthew chapter 10? The first thing after he asks for, pray that God send out workers to the harvest. Anyone have a chapter heading they want to shout out? He sends out the 12. What are they praying for? That they move, right? Not that we're going to mysteriously pray for someone to come out here, but Jesus tells his disciples, pray the Lord sends out workers. And guess who those workers are? The ones that are praying. So what does prayer require? Prayer means there's movement. Not that it's detached from the situation in this world, but how can God use me to help out? How can God use me to help in this situation? And sometimes when it's sickness, I can't necessarily make you well, but I probably can sit with you. I can help out in some way. How is God going to use me in these prayers? Most people think compassion looks like I notice, I feel bad for whatever the situation is, and maybe, just maybe, I'll step in and help out. But what does Jesus show? He shows something different. Compassion is not complete until there's movement. Compassion shows I hurt for these people, and so where am I going to go? I'm going to go to God in prayer. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to move towards these people in a way that I can. There's so many people in your life that might need something from you. I don't know if you struggle with this. I know I struggle with this sometimes. I don't think I struggle with this with anyone in this room, and I think that's an honest statement. It all should be honest up here, but it is honest. It's true. I'll get phone calls, and I'll be like, I have a good buddy. He lives in a different state. We don't talk often, but when he calls, I need to have enough time because the phone call is going to take a long time. And so I have to choose, am I going to push the red button or the green button? Right? And eventually I'll call back, but it's going to take from me, right? That's not just phone calls. That's people we might see. Last week I was at school. There were people I saw that I realized I don't have time right now. I was in a busy week, and it probably wasn't right, but I took the long way around. Sometimes we got to do that for our own sanity, but most of the time, when God has put something in our way, how are we going to have compassion? How are we going to reach out? Look at what Jesus showed us. In Matthew chapter 9, verse 35, Jesus went through the towns, the villages, teaching in the synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. What did Jesus do? He saw the crowd. He didn't avoid the crowd. He didn't ignore the call. He walked to it. Can you imagine? And last week, if you were here, I thought Adam did an incredible job of showing how Jesus went out and healed and spent time with and preached and just gave up of himself to all the people. And this is what you see Jesus doing. He goes through the towns to look for the hurting. And we don't always necessarily go out there. We hope, well, maybe they'll come here. Anyone remember this movie? Came out several years ago. Field of Dreams, right? And the theme was, if you build this baseball field, they will come. And what is it? It's all these ghosts of the past, or whatever. That part didn't matter. But we might think, if we build this nice auditorium, which it is nice and it is beautiful, and I think the singing was great, not just that the kids did it, but I think us all scooting together, things are wonderful today. We might think if we build it, they will come. And we want the place to be comfortable. But there's so many people that are waiting for someone to reach out to them. You'll see this every other week on Heads Up Kilgore. If you want to spend the time in the drama of Heads Up Kilgore, you see people say, looking for a good church. How many churches are in Kilgore? There's church on every corner. It's not hard to find a church in Kilgore. You throw a rock and you hit a church in most places. I like that we're right here in the neighborhood. We're the only church in this neighborhood. People are looking for a church. They're looking for something. How do we reach those people? How do you reach your neighbor that they're looking for something? They're looking for a relationship. They're looking for someone to help them in their loneliness, in their struggles. Well, Jesus sees that, and he refuses to stay distant. Well, come to me if you got a problem. He feels that compassion, and that compassion makes him step in their direction, step into their lives. He recognizes the harvest, and then he enters the field. And he says, if you don't recognize it, pray about it. And then when you pray about it, remember, who am I praying? I'm praying to God to give me courage to go out and step into this. I don't think we can say we're disciples of Jesus if we're not following him, if we're not following what he's doing, if we're not stepping out, if we're not doing what he's doing in the world. Disciples of Jesus are more than just fans that say, I like what Jesus did. And so far, this is a lot of good stuff that Jesus is showing us. I like this. But discipleship is being part of it. And so here's the challenge. I want you to ask yourself these questions. Where are you keeping at a distance? Is it in a ministry here, or is it in a relationship with somebody? And what have you decided in your heart that's too much that you're willing to give? I can give this much, but I can't go any more. And I would encourage you to pray about that. pray that God helps you to have the courage, helps you to find the time, helps you to find the boldness, helps you to find the patience to work within that. Last week I thought was great. One, I was in school the week before, and then I get a phone call from Jason Bragg and talking about this guy from Scotland wanting to come over and talk about some of the things happening there, and I thought this is the perfect time for this guy to come, for me personally. But then I was blessed because I thought, what a great mission that they've got over there. And for me personally, I've been to Scotland twice in the last 3-4 years. And I've been looking at family history, and something about this really grabbed me. And it touched my heart, and I said, you know what? I want to be a part of that, and so I'm now a part of this. And if it grabbed you too, when God puts things in our way, well, let's be a part of it. Now, not everyone needs to support Scotland, right? But God's putting something in your way, putting something in your path. How can I help out with that? Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's with my time. Maybe it's with my prayers. How do I step into that? If we look at churches, and I told you there's a lot of churches around there, but there's also a lot of churches that are closing their doors. And I want us to wonder, why are churches stalling out? Why do they grow to be this much, this size membership, and then not much more? Could be that the harvest is just a mess around us, and people are struggling, people don't care. Maybe that's it. Or is it that the church is not moving out? Has the church been happy where we are and we're waiting for them to come to us? Sometimes we see, but we don't step out. We feel, but we don't move. And over time, compassion for someone that's hurting, someone that's lost in sin, someone that needs friendship, all that compassion is observation. I see it, my heart hurts, but I don't do anything about it. I know I deal with that. And what would Jesus say? Harvest is plentiful. Pray to the Lord of the harvest. And guess what? Pray that He has us do something. Look what happens with Jesus. His compassion leads Jesus to the cross. Move over to chapter 16. Chapter 16, verse 21. Reads like this. From that time, Jesus began to explain to His disciples that He must go to Jerusalem. He must suffer many things in the hands of the elders, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and He must be killed on the third day, be raised to life. Jesus saw the problems in this world, but He saw more than just problems of sickness, more than just problems of hunger. He realized there's only one thing I can do, because there's a problem of sin and there's a problem where people are lost eternally, and He had to do the one thing that He was called to do. And so He set His face towards the cross. This week is the week before Easter, which is about 2,000 years ago, roughly at this time of year. Jesus was making His way into Jerusalem. He did it with purpose. In Matthew 9, Jesus sees the crowd. He sees the hurting. He sees the hungry. He sees the sick. He sees the broken. He sees the struggling. And then Matthew 16, He sets His face towards the cross, because what's going to happen is going to cost Jesus something. It's going to cost Him His life. Because this can't be fixed through healing and teaching. This only can be fixed through full sacrifice. And it can't be fixed from a distance. It has to be fixed where Jesus does it personally. He comes into this world. And this world doesn't want to hear that. The world wants redemption to come through the power of God. where he could just wipe out all the bad. But compassion requires sacrifice. And look what Peter says. Peter tells him, "Never, Lord. This shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You don't have in mind what the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Human concerns are, we can solve this world through power. We can make people serve Jesus. That's what happened back in the Crusades, and it didn't really work too well. Jesus is teaching us how you change the world is through sacrifice. The temptation is to avoid the cross. The temptation is to take a shortcut. The temptation is to choose power over the cross. But Jesus says, no. Sacrifice. That's when the world sees. That's when the world's changing. Jesus isn't just healing bodies. He's confronting sin. He's reversing death. And that kind of problem requires a cross. See, compassion that avoids cost is not the compassion of Jesus. Real compassion moves you to sacrifice. Think about the politicians in this world that talk about all the different problems that the world has, and they want to use your money to solve these problems. How many of these people are we electing that they sacrifice of themselves? But it's not just politicians, it's us. Because real compassion means that we've got to serve. We've got to give of ourselves. General compassion says, I care about people, I want to help people, and it costs them nothing. It's a good talking point. You can put it on the news. None of these people care. This other party doesn't care. But the moment compassion gets specific to a family member in your life, a neighbor, a coworker, the person you saw on the corner, the moment it gets specific to you, what is that? That's costly. Costs something. We like a God that sees the hurting. We like a God that sees struggling. We like a God that moves towards the broken. But so often we resist a God that says, come with me. The fields are plentiful. It's the workers that are few. So Jesus finishes it like this. In verse 24 of chapter 16. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. They must take up their cross. They must follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Jesus calls us to pick up our cross. He calls us to follow him. But following Jesus isn't just a symbolic cross that we wear around our neck. Following means that we put ourselves at risk. We give up our time. We give up sometimes finances. We give up of ourselves. So my second challenge to you is to ask yourself these questions. What are you unwilling to lose? What are you protecting in your life? What am I protecting in my life? We're all protecting something. It's our comfort, it's our control, it's our time, it's our security, and maybe it's our image. Because whatever we are choosing not to lose, that's where we stop following Jesus. This year we've been talking about being formed by the Spirit of God, by the flow of His Spirit in this world. God is moving in this world, and we can choose to step into it, or we can choose to just look at it and observe. Jesus saw the crowd, and He moved towards them. And then He paid the ultimate price. He went into sacrifice by going to the cross. And he tells us, follow me. So I want us to think, are we going to follow Christ? Are we going to truly feel this compassion and move, or are we just going to look and observe? This world's full of observers. And often I'm standing on that sideline myself, just looking. What Jesus is calling us is to move when we see something. And maybe that movement is your own life. You've known, God, I've lived a life apart from you, a life in sin, and I need to come and make you my Lord. And to make him our Lord, we're baptized into him. We have our sins washed away, and then we go and we walk with him. Maybe that's time for you to do that in your life, and you've been putting it off. Or maybe you've already put the Lord on in baptism, and then you stayed in that water and you just observed what's happening around in this world. Or maybe you've come in and out, and you need prayers that help you to get a move on, help you to move into action, help you to become what you once were. If there's anything we can help you with, you can come up front, you can go to one of the sides, and we can pray for you while we stand and sing.